So he is playing a Titleist Pro V1X Plus, listed as a prototype. In some publications, I think it's fair to call it a CPO, right? One of the custom performance options. One of the off-book, if you will, not available at retail.
Yep.
And for good reason. So
let's decode this.
Yeah, so
it's really pretty simple.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll start with kind of Titleist ball naming convention 101 in terms of the CPO stuff. So you'll either have, so classic examples.
So many things we saw we can't talk about it. Often the case, as is often the case in the world of no puts given. How you living, everybody? Happy 4th of July week, Tony. Or as we like to say, we won the war, we make the rules. Right?
Suck it, Harry.
Yeah. Well, you got the red, white, and blue going. Good job.
I just really like this hat.
Yeah, that's a throwback. I think I still have mine. It's 7 years old? 8? Maybe more?
Yeah, it's Fujikura classic trucker hat.
Yeah, it's definitely pre-Ventus.
Yeah.
So,
I keep them around.
We're going to bury the lead for next week, which is holy hell. There's a lot of equipment coming out next week.
Absolutely everything is Christmas in July, folks. There is it does kind of, the release cycles, if you will, kind of pick up a little bit in the summer, but I don't recall in my 15-ish years doing this a single week where you had so many big releases, like meaningful releases. Not, there's some little stuff coming, kind of niche-y, whatever you want to call it, but we're talking like legitimate product line stuff coming.
And because we can't yet talk about what those things are until next week and possibly the week after, depending on, because next week we'll be in Arizona doing our big ass annual ball test. I think that's actually what we should call it, the big ass annual ball test. Yeah, I think that's a good name. But why do you, like I said, we tend to see smaller releases, more niche releases. It was like, hey, it's, the British Open. Let's see who comes
driving
out with
irons.
Driving irons, right? Let's see, and then you might get a different colorway, meaning, hey, it's the second year in a product's life cycle. Let's do black in an iron. Try to bump sales a little bit, keep it fresh, keep it interesting, whatever. Why are we seeing the stuff we're going to talk about? These are not those type of releases. These are like, flagship products within their respective categories for these brands. Why are we seeing that in July?
Well, for some brands, that's historically when these things have come anyway. And I do think if you look, there's an ebb and flow to this. I was talking about it with Adam last week where companies like slowly add products to their lineup. And I remember, I won't get into who, but like several years ago, it was a story like, oh my God, we just looked at it and our iron catalog got so big, we had to scale some things back. Just too much overlap.
Too many flavors.
And I do think we're building towards that kind of thing again. But to answer your question, we're reaching the point where, and maybe it'll stay this way this time around, is fitting becomes a larger part of the conversation, has become a larger part of the conversation where, you sort of like, used to be like, all right, I have one product for every category. Now I have multiple, 2 to 3 products in some cases for many categories to fit kind of like these little niches within those categories. And so I think we're in a period of time where catalog sizes are increasing, at least for some, and it gets to the point where you just can't launch everything in January. And so when's the next logical thing? Let's split everything up every 6 months. And we've talked about this before too. Companies want, arguably even need to have something new to talk about periodically. It's not like, hey, we release in January and we're just, that's it. And we'll see you again next January. And you want to kind of keep that momentum going through the year. So That's part of it,
and that
too.
part makes total sense to me, and it'll be interesting as we talk more about who these are. And I think that the part for consumers, too, is that companies do a good job of, in general, is trying to avoid some of that overlap. And we've harped on some companies before where it's like, hey, don't come out with this club in January and then 3-4 months later come out with something that was very close to that club that I'm like, ooh, I really wish I would have tried that one at that time, right? So still, kind of providing for some meaningful separation between them, but that's next week. We'll talk more about that then. This is the week of Aldrich. Say it with me, Tony. Potgeiter.
Is that what is it? Geeter? Potgeiter? Geiter?
Yes.
All right. Whatever you say, man.
Yeah. First win on tour. This was the Rocket class. Yes, there was a U.S. Senior Open. Yes, it was in my home state. Yes, it was at an awesome place, and Patrick Harrington won. But it's the week of Aldrich Potgeiter. Is he a modern? A lot to unpack, actually, for a guy that has, effectively 13 Titleist clubs. There's actually some interesting things to unpack in here because he is the longest player on tour. He is cruising in the low 190s, like average ball speed, right, in the low 190s. So if you're looking for the face of the rollback or whatever, people might point to him and go, okay. However, his physique is a little bit more up my alley, a little more robust, and I appreciate that. But yeah, 20 years old. Getting your first win on tour, he's 20 years old, South African kid. I mean, that's huge. Anyway, let's look at his back.
He is 4th in strokes gained off the tee for the season. So, I guess that's something. Approach game needs some work. Yeah, let's look in his bag. This approach game needs a little work.
Well, I think you see that, though.
Probably less work than mine, but still.
Probably less work than yours. We've seen that with guys who... DJ didn't really become the DJ he used to be that we remembered until he kind of figured out that 100 to 140 wedge game, right? I think guys that move it as fast as he can, they're going to have some kind of a weakness somewhere, and I think that's what would make sense to me. A guy that can move it that far, a lot of times pretty shut-face wedge player, and needs to figure that out. But he's GT2 driver, so current generation driver. Ventus Black 8X.
That's a steel pipe. That's just... I think the flex designation on that should just be no.
Not for you.
It does not it does not flex.
It does not flex. But he's definitely in that camp of kind of play the heaviest hammer that you can swing, We see guys that are really fast that don't play an 8X driver shaft. You might see him in a 7X. I'm not sure what Jake Knapp has in his, but he obviously is another guy that really moves it. I'll look that up here real quick, mate. But yeah, 8X in the driver shaft in a GT2.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we talk about let's look at the single club in his bag that is not a Titleist, which is a Ping G440 Max 3-wood, 15-degree 3-wood.
Okay.
Fujikura Ventus TR Black 6. So lighter shaft in the fairway wood than in the driver, which is...
What does that tell you? That's abnormal. Anything, we tend to see the opposite progression, right? Let's say somebody's a 6X driver, they go 7X, and then maybe 8X. You kind of go up in weight class as you go. He goes down 2 weight classes.
Yeah, I probably need to text JJ and see if he has any insight. I don't know. It's an unusual one, for sure. And... what's not necessary, and even if you're going, again, not entirely apples to apples here because we're going from an 8X to a 6, but I mean that TR Black I mean, if you want to talk about the black being low launch, I don't even know how to describe the TR. So yeah, I mean, it should be a little easier to get some dynamic lofting with just a 6 in it, but still, yeah, it's an interesting progression of shafts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, that's always interesting too, right? Player has 10, 11, 12, 13 clubs from one manufacturer in the bag. That one or two, so often we see it, right? Hybrid, fairway wood, something. Obviously, that club does something specific that he needs. First win, I think, right, on PGA Tour for the new T-Series irons.
I couldn't swear to it, wouldn't swear to it in court, but it's got to be, if it's not the first, it's up there pretty quickly. In quick succession.
Yep, so he's what, T100s, 6 through wedge, is that right?
T100, 6 through 9.
6 through 9.
T150 in the 4th or 5, and then just for good measure, a T250 2-iron, which I would assume is a T250 utility. So
probably that utility build in that.
Yeah, making the case, right, for even the best players in the world often play some variety of combo set, and so here we have 3 T models in the bag. So
and then
really just, I mean, what a story for Titleist, right? This guy's really just sticking to the company line.
I mean, you think about that. You got all the new irons, and then I kind of like that in the wedge, going with the, the SM series, right? The Vokey pitching wedge, and I feel like we're seeing a little bit more of that. Certainly split, but that was part of the reason they came out with like the 44 degree, right? I want to say Lydia Ko was a big part of that reason, as were others saying, hey, I don't want the 46 and we have to bend it 2 degrees, because when you bend loft, right, we're going to mess with the bounce angles. Bounce goes the same direction as loft, so decrease loft, decrease bounce, which makes that wedge maybe a little too diggy.
Right, typically not what you want with a pitching wedge. So
typically not what we want. So now that you got a 44, obviously bending at 1 degree, maybe not a big deal. So if you want to play that at 45, that's fine. But
it's fun.
Yeah,
for an all Titleist bag, and we're not even done with the interesting stuff. But
no, we are not. What else did you see?
We'll mention the Scotty Cameron putter, but that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. But the ball, so he is playing a Titleist Pro V1X Plus, listed as a prototype. In some publications, I think it's fair to call it a CPO, right? One of the custom performance options, one of the off book, if you will, not available at retail.
Yep.
And for good reason. So,
so let's decode this.
Yeah. So
it's really pretty simple.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll start with the kind of Titleist ball naming convention 101 in terms of the CPO stuff. So you'll either have, so classic examples. You have a left dot Pro V1, which everyone is familiar with. Left dash Pro V1X, now a retail option for the last several years. Pro V1 Star, also off book. And generally the convention here is if the special marking, if you will, is to the left of the model name on the side stamp, it means lower, or something is being taken out of it.
Less,
typically spin. Yes.
Yep.
And if it's on the right, it indicates an increase, as if the plus symbol wasn't enough of a hint. So this is a Pro V1X, Titleist's highest spinning golf ball with even more spin.
So quick recap: if it's left, it's less; right is more. So left dot obviously is a lower launching, lower spinning Pro V1. Pro V1 Star is a higher spinning variant.
Yep.
Of the Pro V1, but then we got Pro V1 X left dash. So that's
I don't know if this has occurred to you yet, but what is a dash if not just a minus sign?
That's deep. That's deep.
So there you go,
It's
right?
kind of a
It's Pro V1. It's just you just don't want to
minus.
call it Pro V1X minus, right?
Minus.
Just,
Yeah.
it seems it's
then-
like it's almost a Pro V1, just or X, just not quite. Took a
So
little something
make
out there.
the case for me. So a Pro V1X, we said, okay, this is higher launching, higher in their lineup, highest launching, highest spinning Pro V1. The Pro V1X Plus is the higher spinning variant of that ball. So is this just as simple a case as, hey, this is a guy, because of the dynamics, he just needs more spin? Like, it's not spinning enough, which is crazy to think. A guy that, with that amount, because we tend to think, right, swing speed creates spin, or the opportunity for spin, right? The faster you swing it, kind of the more dynamic things that are going on, the more you can.
You've got those obviously impact conditions, right? How much are you delofting, that kind of thing. So,
right.
Here's a case of a guy who needs a little bit of extra spin above and beyond what he gets with a Pro V1X, presumably wants that to keep that higher ball flight. And so you see, right, with the wedges and the irons, we're using the golf ball to increase spin, and then when you jump back to the driver with that 8x flat, shaft, now you're thinking, all right, so this is how we're taking a little bit of spin out of this, presumably off the tee. So yeah, it's an interesting set makeup for sure.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, obviously, it's optimal for where he is at today, and he's. I mean, when you win, you don't want to change things, but it would be an interesting one to chat with the Titleist team on. In the off season or moving forward, does that ball still make sense for him? And it very well may. I mean, that's why they have CPOs, right? Is there's going to always be outliers of outliers and need something specific because of that, and good on Titleist for having that for that player. But
yeah, we talk to Titleist about ball fitting. They're going to tell you that left dash is a sub 10% of the market, right? Like that's kind of like the most popular, the one that they would fit the most guys into, like less than 10%. Left dot, fewer still because of the low flight, low spin characteristics. And then to the other extreme here, right? Really high flight from Pro V1X flight, a little higher still because of the added spin from the plus designation and what you get there. And this is a ball that from a fitting standpoint, this isn't a case of they're just keeping the good stuff for the tour. Like, no, it's not.
Right.
This is just a golf ball that's not gonna fit a lot of people.
No.
And they're like every kind of like there's a part of us, right? We look at what's in the bag and we're like, could I play with this guy's bag? Could I be moderately successful? I look at this, I'm like, I've got no chance. Absolutely no chance.
Nope. It is. It's an interesting setup in that there's parts that you want to talk about why fitting is so important. The models, and I think we can talk about impression because I haven't in bar, but his model setup in the irons is what I was fit into. So 4-5 iron, T150. 6 through wedge, T100. So that was the ideal set makeup for me. It's the ideal set makeup for him. And I guarantee you they are not for the same reasons. Like, there has to be, different ways that you get to that particular answer. And, again, just interesting as you kind of take a peek in there. But, Tony, you switched something in your bag.
Well, not yet.
Yes, you are. You've committed.
It will go in. So,
what is your big new? What's your new toy, Tony?
So my putter broke through almost
well, maybe we should start there, Tony. How did your putter?
So this is my putter. This is my PXG. What is it? A Blackbird or Blackjack? It's one of the blacks.
You can read it. It's on the bottom.
Yeah. There it is, Blackjack. So I've used this for a number of years, and I don't know how well it's coming through here, but
not great.
Well, how about that?
Oh yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
See, so you're not, and
Yep.
There we go.
Oh,
giving you all the angles of the wobble here.
Yep.
So I know guys who've broken putters various ways. I know people I broke a driver shaft in rage one time. Whacked it off smacked it against the staircase. Anyway, but this was a case of I was off the tee in a bad place in the woods and kind of between two trees, and had to do this thing where you kind of reverse, kind of through the legs with the putter. And I would personally, exactly, yeah, like reverse croquet. Yep. I would argue that any putter shaft should be able to withstand impact like that. Again, this was not throwing it. This was not banging into stuff. This was using it for a shot on a golf course. Yeah, no, this was not helicoptered. Okay. But it broke, so I went to putt with it on the next green, and it's like all of a sudden I'm like, why is my putter spaghetti? It's kind of the opposite basically the opposite of a Ventus Black 80X in my putter shaft right about now. And so no fault of my own, I maintain. I feel like that was a perfectly valid way to use a putter. And this is a putter I've putted well with for 2+ years. Putter I love. Putter I plan to get fixed. We'll address the situation with the necessary parties. But in the meantime, I took it as a sign. Like, you should all know where this is going.
Finally.
Yeah, so
Tony is on. So what we got DF3.
Yeah, I went back and forth, settled on the DF3. I thought about going full satellite dish on the 2.1, but I'm gonna be honest. Like, I was kind of in between, but this is it. Before I putted with a blackjack, I putted with a PXG Blackbird. Again, so that's why I can never keep them tripped. But similar shape to this, right? Not wildly different. And I'll be honest, I was kind of taken in by the ability to just pick up the ball with the hole in the putter. So that seemed like a good. And then I worked with the lab guys because I've joked, right? There's about 54 different alignment aids, and if that's an exaggeration, it's only slight. That might actually be underselling it. But I like having kind of full length lines, and then the ability to put some lines on it that were ball width apart. So lines upon lines, and of course, I've been just to kind of complete it, we've been putting with variations of striped golf balls.
I cannot wait to see you set up to a putt with those lines. You got the blue putter, the yellow striped ball. Like, I'm gonna be out. Yeah, I'm gonna be out with a laser pointer and a protractor.
This is a whole situation, man.
Yeah. So we'll see how this goes. It's I think it's not as weird as it would have been a couple years ago, if only because seems like there's so many people that I know that have lab putters now, and I've had a chance to just grab them and look at them and mess around a little bit with them. But I think, boy, if you were just like I said, 2 years ago, my reaction was like, what the hell is this? So we'll see. It's not a full commitment by any stretch, but like I said, when my putter broke and it wasn't my fault, damn it. I took it as a sign, so we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
When will you find out? You'll put it through the paces. You have to let us know. There is some equipment that we can talk about that's new. You may have seen some that's come out. We'll go with the easy one first. Titleist, Vokey. We know we're in the second year of the SM10 cycle. If past is prologue, we expect every couple of years to get and see potentially new wedges, which tends to mean that second year we'll see some limited edition stuff, fun stuff, whatever. Here we go. Set the stage. Black colorway, Vapor.
Black, yeah. This is a Vokey Black Vapor, which is kind of, if you recall, Jet Black Premium. It's in that family. So treatment on it, so
glossier.
A little bit, and it does not take fingerprints if that's the kind of thing that's important to you. I would say it's reminiscent of slate blue, except for the fact that it's not fucking blue, Corey. But otherwise that's kind of yeah. So that's an option, and true to Vokey, pretty much all retail loft bounce combinations, right hand, left handed. So if you're interested in a little splash of knot color, definitely not blue.
any type of darker colored irons, wedges stuff, obviously is wear. You expect wedges to wear more than others. You expect to see that. Any sense of, like, just from a durability standpoint, what, if anything, Titleist did on this one to try to keep that finish looking newer longer? Not that you expect it to look new forever. It's a black finish on a wedge.
Yeah, I mean, we frequently hear about improved processes for this kind of thing. So, I don't know. I haven't played with these for an extended period of time. I tend to be more of a flatter color guy on wedges, slate blue obviously being an exception, but if we mention the slate blue, I don't know, does it come up?
Not yet. We might.
Yeah, we'll work that in.
Maybe they'll come out with a just full line of Vokey Tonys.
Right?
And it's one finish, one option. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. That's what you get.
Honestly, I'm just going to float this out here because, I've given up expecting that, when we go look at SM11, for example, presumably sometime in December of this year, if the calendar holds true, I do not expect that slate blue will be a full option. Right? This is always, if they ever bring it back, it's going to be limited. But here's the deal: I've talked about, right, going back to the 2 in the trunk idea.
Oh yes. Yes, Tony's 2 in the trunk.
And we've sat here. How many times have we had a conversation about rust on wedges and how it doesn't add spin and all of this? And
it still doesn't.
It still doesn't.
Still doesn't.
But so one of my in the trunk clubs, metaphorically speaking, sometimes literally, depending on how sloppy I'm getting with things. I try not to store them in the trunk, but is my V grind, my Vokey V grind, right? The alternative to the T when things get a little soft. And because that's a WedgeWorks thing and what they've been doing with WedgeWorks, raw only. And so
raw only in the V grind.
Yeah, and so I'm the guy going, look, rust doesn't add spin. You don't want rust on your wedges. And I look at my V grind. I'm like, I got a little rust on this. Like, it's unavoidable. So, very, very long story short, it would sure be nice to get some kind of finish on a V grind.
You want a V grind option on?
Yeah, slate blue. Slate blue is a good option to have on a V grind.
I like that they keep naming finishes after me, so I'm gonna keep playing those. I like them. One other thing, Titleist did not see this 2, 3, 4 years ago. Again, you'd say, not sure I saw this one coming. I'm talking about a fairway wood, Tony.
Yeah, I almost lost track of what you were talking about. So yes,
GT1 Tour.
3 Tour, I think, is the official name. No space between the 3 and the Tour. 3 Tour.
So in my head, in my mind, when GT1 came out, well, GT1, and we can go back a generation when they designated, the one driver, right? Whether it was, TSR1. The whole idea was higher launch, higher spin, really kind of targeted at that slower golfer that
moderate
swing speed
don't
golfer.
Say slow, moderate swing speed.
That needed maybe lighter components. Like
you're so slow, you moderate.
You're so slow, you're moderate. That needed that, right? And so that was kind of the idea of the one. You had the 2, 3, and 4 models. 2 and 3, meat of the market. 4, okay. 1, this is kind of our J spec, slower, moderate swing speed player. Flash forward to now, we have a fairway wood that is taken that identity but made it a viable tour club, something guys on tour, the best players in the world, are going to use. How and why are they going to use this club?
So we talked about how with the GT iteration of the 1 series, they added the flip weighting and gave you the option of adding additional head weight so that it became less about being exclusively for moderate swing speed guys, but also for spin challenged, if you will, right? The guys who actually need to put spin back into the game. Typically, those are moderate swing speed guys, but there are some. Not exclusively. We use Phillip as an example, right? Driver swing speed, close to 100 miles an hour, but generates no spin whatsoever. And so GT1, really good fit for him. With the fairway wood, I think, going back to when we were out there in December and having a chance to get fitted for it a little bit and testing it out, and it just like, there was something about it, like unusually easy to hit up in the air. So like it just, like for anybody just needs more height out of their fairway wood. I can't say never because we don't try absolutely everything always, but it stood out. I'd say it stood out as a fairway wood at a 15 degree loft. We'll come back to 15 degrees, right? Air quotes. Yep. Air quotes on 15 degrees of loft. It just launched super easy. The shaping, again, right? More of that flat, I call it squat profile. You take like a normal fairway wood.
I stepped on it.
Yeah, stepped on it, flatten it out a little bit. And it's just one of those ones where you don't feel like you're going to have trouble getting the good part of the face onto the golf ball. So super easy to hit, kind of more of a, throw out the moderate swing speed, whatever you want to call it, just like a really good fairway option for average golfers. And then something weird happened.
What went weird?
Titleist decides to make a tour version of this, which is essentially stronger lofted. So maybe it doesn't want to get up as easy. Start showing it off to tour guys, and they actually start playing it. What was the number? Was it like 20 or 25%? Do you remember? We just had this call, but
let's go with.
I think it's 20.
Hold me to it, but I was going to say 20%.
Yeah,
so swear to it in court either.
Right, so
let's go with that.
Now all of a sudden you have this club that was designed for moderate swing speed or spin challenged golfers. And 20% of fairway woods, Titleist fairway woods in play on tour are now GT1s.
I know.
And so you have like this weird situation where like usually it's products are either developed explicitly for the tour or in conjunction with the tour and kind of trickle down to the rest of us. Here's a case of a club where tour was almost certainly not the target audience, again based on everything.
Wasn't part of the design consideration originally for GT.
Right, and it just kind of just somehow caught a little bit of fire in this tour model, 14.5 degree tour model, and so they're bringing that to retail now as the Titleist GT1 3 Tour, which is a 14.5 degree actual loft head.
Yep, which is actually about 2 degrees stronger than the.
And so this is kind of the part where Titleist stepped in it a little bit, no different than anybody else. I think a lot of people understand that. It's one of the, not too long ago somebody told us, right, the loft is just part of the model name. Like don't read too much into it. Don't expect your 15 degree club to actually have 15 degrees of loft, and that's the case here where the standard retail GT1 3 wood at 15 degrees is actually going to be closer to 16.5 degrees, which certainly explains why it gets up so easy.
Yep.
But now if you want that lower lofted but still super easy to hit squat, if you will, fairway wood, available very soon. Basically, by the time this publishes, you can get that. So
the thing I love about the 3T is exactly that, where I think if you asked 100 golfers, said, hey, what's the hardest club for you to get in the air off the fairway? Everybody said fairway woods. No one's gonna say, I really struggle to get my sand wedge. Generally speaking, right? You
Let's wait for Chris to return.
To hit wedges low and to hit fairway woods high. I think this kind of solves that problem potentially. So this is one I'm going to be super, super excited, super interested to demo. So we'll see what happens. What else, Tony? What else you got? Anything? Tony? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, make a note. You're like 3320. You disappeared.
Did I really?
Yeah.
I was just yapping.
No, you were gone.
Where did I go? My screen, I didn't go anywhere. That's
You were
weird.
gone.
What was the last thing you said?
You were just starting to talk about it.
Oh, so here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing about that I'm intrigued by is what's the number one issue most golfers have? Or let me go this way. If you ask 100 golfers, what's the hardest club for you to hit high off the fairway? Probably 3-wood. Like, I just can't, it's a place where we see even better golfers. They don't have separation. They have, maybe they're 3-wood, 5-wood, and 7-wood all go similar distances because you see them hit the 5-wood and you go, oh my gosh, that thing's actually taking off and launching and you're actually getting carry with it. Oh yeah, but my 3-wood's longer. Well, it lands 20 yards short of where your 5-wood lands and runs another however many yards. So yes, I see that, but this actually solves a problem that a lot of golfers have. I think even pretty good players would be interested if you just take the 3 tour, hit it against your current one, and just see if the numbers are any better, if you can benefit or if you need that. Or let's say you're a mini driver person and it's like, hey, that's your 2 in the trunk situation where maybe mini driver in, mini driver out. Well, this is kind of the opposite of a mini driver, right? Like this is, so it's like, hey, if you want that 3-wood that launches high, carries a certain number for you, here you go.
And I would assume, right, even at the tour level, based on how this flies with the flight characteristics, it's going to be more of a 3-wood that doesn't rely on much roll at all, even on the tour level. It is kind of like get it up and get it down for kind of long approach shots, almost like an extension of the iron set. So but it's just so strange to see kind of the design trickle up from the moderate swing speed player to the tour level.
Yeah, this is definitely more about a carry number, but yeah, obviously once we have an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with those, we will.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like when we go through our fairway wood testing how this shakes out, because again it's an interesting kind of paradox in the Titleist world where you have on one end, we'll continue to talk about this as the new irons roll out, but this idea of like Titleist struggles to shake its identity as a brand exclusively for tour players, right, to the point where a lot of everyday golfers don't believe that Titleist even makes something that qualifies as a game improvement club. So they're, on one hand, they're fighting that battle, and on the other side of it, you have this GT1 that's trickling up to the tour. But at the same time, I can tell you that we have some people who don't want to mess with it because they feel like it's for players that are beneath them almost, right? Like, no, I don't need the low spin. I need the low spin one. I don't want that. That's the old man club, right? Mm-hmm. So they're fighting that on one side, and
Twill be interesting for sure. So like you said, next week, I don't know what we're going to do next week. We're going to be in Arizona, so it might be golf ball stuff, might not be, but when we get back, we're going to have a lot of equipment to talk about. I'm going to spend another week or two sleeping in my cozier sheets. I'm going to, and then we'll go from there. So on that note, we out.